Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is INX Prime Live. Remember, we are on your screens every single Monday to Friday between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Now, Action South Africa has urged the South African Police Services to deploy additional resources to ensure the safety of learners across schools in Eldorado Park. Now, this follows an incident where armed assailants actually entered a secondary school in Eldorado Park, opening up fire and leaving educators and learners traumatized. In a separate incident and on the same day, a pupil was stabbed at another school, another secondary school in Eldos. What is behind the violence is our schools, and how can communities actually ensure the safety of children at schools? Now, that's such important conversations to have and questions to ask. We are going to be chatting to Dereleen James. Now, she does actually join me now, and she's a member of parliament as well as a member of Action SA. Dereleen, thank you so much for joining us this evening on INX Prime Live.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again. Really do appreciate your time. And again, congratulations on your recent swearing in as a member of parliament. I mean, that's a massive accomplishment. So congratulations on that. I'm sure you will continue to fight the good fight in the corridors of parliament during your term. I just wanted us to get into this conversation. Now, we understand that parents in the area are panicking a lot after being told that they should actually send their children to schools at their own discretion. This must be a terrifying choice to make, right?
No, definitely. Considering that every child has the right to education and considering that going to school should be a safe place, where does that leave one as a parent? That shouldn't have been the case. I strongly believe that, the parents should have been given some reassurance that their learners and the children will be safe at these schools. I think the incident called for an immediate intervention from the highest authority, that being the National Department of Basic Education, as well as SAPS, as well as Social Development. And for them just to turn a blind eye, for me, that is totally unacceptable. I have, however, written to both ministers, and we are hoping a response because this has been going on for just way too long.
Yeah, it's definitely something that needs to be rectified. And just in terms of exactly that, you have made these requests and it is a call to the SAPS regarding safety at the schools. I know that you are waiting feedback, but just understanding what the process is like for you to be able to get an ultimate intervention. How long does that process actually take?
Well, at this point, we are hoping that by next week we actually have a response because I think the situation actually warrants an immediate response. I mean, it's not like it's just one learner that's traumatized. I mean, if we think about it, it's an entire school, an entire community. It's not just an isolated incident. These incidents has been occurring over the longest time ever. We have said, and all spheres of government are aware, yes, I am government now, and this is why I can call on the minister, to come and account. Like I said, it's not an isolated incident. It is not the first time. Parents have visited a school on Monday in Klipspruit West, and I asked the principal as well as the deputy principal, what is the one thing, if they had a wish list where, if they had an opportunity to call on assistance, and they said to me, it has to be school safety. The fact that, some of our schools, the infrastructure, there's no fencing, you have drug dealing happening, and this is why you have perpetrators that just feels freely they can walk through the schools because how well protected are our schools in terms of infrastructure, in terms of security at the gates. The entire community is under siege.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, if you're looking at conversations that were happening before elections, a lot of the colored community, especially in Eldorado Park, felt that they were not being heard at all. That's why we heard the likes of yourself, but also people like Gayton McKenzie, for example, from the Patriotic Alliance, or even people in the opposition, for example, the Colored National Party coming out and speaking very openly about the importance of rectifying this issue. But just touching back on the Eldorado Park community as well, we already know that there's issues of gangsterism and also a drug pandemic as well. As an activist yourself who has worked on solving those challenges over the years, what can people look forward to in terms of what you can do as an MP? Because like I did mention, the colored community in that area have been complaining for a very, very long time.
I think for starters, what people can expect is the fact that, yes, like I've said, I will hold to account the Minister of Basic Education as well as SAPS. It is now when we can put together a holistic plan where we include all relevant departments and all relevant stakeholders. I think the issues in Eldorado Park is not just of the nature where you have one department that can intervene. I think previously our communication to government has always been that we need a multifaceted approach where we need all stakeholders involved. If you look at the background of this community, if you look at the socio-economic conditions in this community, it warrants, social development, it warrants opportunities to come in, it warrants local government to step in, just an entire complete makeover of Eldorado Park is needed in order for it to at least yield a little bit of impact and results.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, also just looking at crime, crime is a huge problem in South Africa. But if you're going to focus on a specific issue, I mean, gun violence is something, if you're looking at the US, it's a major topic of debate among the different, Democrats and Republicans on whether that should actually be part of what they're doing. We know that they have the right to bear arms. In South Africa, we don't have that in our constitution, but gun violence is such a huge issue, more predominantly in certain areas, and we know that it is quite a huge issue in Eldorado Park. It's quite a disturbing reality for communities around that area. In your opinion, how can this actually be minimized when it comes to the use of guns as well as gun violence?
I think for starters, we need to have an immediate amnesty period, for people who are in possession of illegal firearms can actually hand in those firearms. I think we also need to call for an audit and for us to see that when these firearms are actually, when SAPS actually recovers these firearms, because of late I have of the opinion that our local police station has recovered quite a few firearms. I cannot help but wonder where those firearms end up and if they actually find themselves, back circulating in the community. What is of great concern at the moment is if you look at the sort of the age of the perpetrators and the people that is in possession of firearms, it is 13, 14 and 15-year-old children. So where are these kids getting those firearms? I think immediately we need an intelligence-driven operation also to unfold in the community that can actually unpack and actually go back and try and trace how these firearms are actually finding their way into our community. How come it is that a 13-year-old is in possession? And why is it that kids at school are now carrying firearms? So a little bit more research. Instead of just arresting people, we need to sort of interrogate the people that we arrest in terms of where did you find this firearm? And I find that that is not forthcoming in many communities.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, just also looking at questions and comments coming in from social media, we have a gentleman called Jameson actually, sharing his views, and he says that the biggest issue, one of the root causes when it comes to gangsterism and gun violence has to do with, the accessibility to gangsters in schools in particular, and the fact that they can actually influence from a young age. If we can get rid of that aspect, then there will be a separation and a much better result. What's your thoughts on that?
Definitely. I think it's also, we've come to a time where parents need to start parenting again. And I think we need to start looking at the enforcement of the Children's Act as well, where if we have children loitering late at night and if, we have children that are sort of displaying early behavioral challenges, uncontrollable behavioral challenges, where their parents have not intervened, that learner is actually at risk. And the responsibility lies with the parent to intervene. We find that today parents are just completely disconnected from what is happening in the lives of their children. You find that children are, there's chronic absenteeism at school and parents aren't aware. Parents aren't sitting with their kids, checking their books. You just might find that there's a firearm in your child's bag. So it's got to start at home. It has to start with parents. Schools cannot be a dumping ground for parents just to go and dump their kids. I spoke to the principal in the week and he said to me, you know what, Dereleen, one of the most challenging things that we're experiencing of late is, when we call on parents, to intervene, to visit our school and discuss their children's behavior and academics, parents just don't show up. Now, the fact that a child is at risk, according to the Children's Act, we can actually charge those parents. We also need to activate social development as well as social workers, because social workers are mandated, to intervene and to ensure that the household that this child actually comes from is stable and it is conducive. But with the absenteeism or lack of social workers throughout all spheres of government, that remains a major challenge. And for as long as we don't have social workers in our schools, in our communities, this is the case.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I'm just looking at another question, and I'm glad that you mentioned that about social workers. I mean, Doreen also has the opinion that social workers will make the biggest impact when it comes to intervention in schools, but she feels like it's just not something that's easily available in South Africa. And I wanted to know exactly why. Why do you think that's the case? Is it a budget issue? What's the main reason why we are not actually using an intervention of having social workers?
I think for the longest time, also prior me becoming a member of parliament, we have highlighted these challenges. We said that we need field and intake social workers. We need social workers that's accessible to the community. It has always been a budget issue. I mean, you have so many social workers that's retired. You have so many graduates that are sitting at home. And I'm not sure why the department isn't embarking sort of on a drive to employ as many social workers, both the Department of Social Development as well as the Department of Education, as well as the Department of Health. You find that that very key role player is absent in all of those departments. And it is also something that we have addressed in Parliament. I think when we had our first or second sitting, we mentioned the importance, and the Minister did commit to ensuring that they actually deploy more social workers.
Yeah, we hope to see that change very, very soon. But again, Dereleen, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It was a pleasure chatting to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome, guys. That is Dereleen James, who is actually a member of parliament for Action SA, where she did just indicate the importance of definitely making sure that we see the SAPS have more of an intervention when it comes to, obviously looking after our kids and making sure that we see less and less of these shootings and stabbings that happen out in Johannesburg, but also all around the country as well.